Welcome back to Inner Experience, the podcast where we talk about self improvement within the context of relationships. I'm Nirel,
And I'm Amanda.
and this is my Auntie Libby, who is one of my
Hi.
mom's best friends and our guest for today. We're going to be talking a bit about education and the state of education today. And my Auntie Libby was an educator along with my mom. So we want to hear her opinions on the topic. Do you want to start by talking about how you feel about participation in cold calling?
Sure, we can. I wouldn't say I have a favorable opinion about cold calling or participation in the traditional sense.
So how many, like in your educational experience, how many classes, how many structures use cold calling? Like in high school, did you get cold called on? Law
No,
school for sure, you said. But
yeah, high school there was no like system of enforced participation really. So then when I got to college and participation was more important for our grade, that was like a big shock to the system. But then some people who came from like private high schools, I feel like they were more used to that. So,
I had it in high school.
but was
yeah,
it
did you?
cold calling or was it you just had to get your voice out there?
Yeah, I wasn't cold calling in college. We were just expected to participate, especially
Right.
in like discussion-based seminars and like humanities classes in particular. And I'm very shy in class, and I usually feel like what I have to say doesn't need to be shared with everyone, so
Hmm?
that would stress me
I'm
out a
I'm
lot.
with you on that.
Yeah.
Did you feel like people listened to you? Or did it depend on the community? Like depend on the class, depend on the professor?
I feel like professors did value my contributions, and some professors would tell me like, "Oh, I like what you have to say. You should speak
Yeah.
more." So I don't actually know if it was even a shyness thing. I think it was more of like a perfectionism thing, where I was just like worrying about whether I could articulate what I was thinking well and worrying about like whether other people would agree with it or like whether it would like resonate with the class. And so I would just overthink it and then the moment would pass and I wouldn't say anything and the conversation would move on. So I guess it wasn't like shyness, but it was like self-consciousness. I mean, they're sort of tied together, but yeah, it was hard for me. And then it was upsetting when I felt like my efforts weren't recognized because when I did participate, it was a lot harder for me, I felt, than it was for a lot of other people. But in comparison to the amount that other people participated, it didn't seem like much. But to me, it felt like I was really
Yeah. Like that was a
making an
lot.
effort. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I That was the first difference that I noticed coming from an all-girls school because I graduated from an all-girls high school and then going to Claremont McKenna College, I was like thrust into this pretty conservative political science department and guys would just raise their hand even though they knew nothing
Yep.
and just like ramble on and here I am like not saying anything if I feel like I don't have anything valuable to contribute to the class, kind of like what you were saying. And I was like, this is wild. They do not shut up. And the professors liked it. Like they were getting into this witty banter, like, oh, we disagree on this and that. And it was ridiculous. Some of the guys would just completely overrun the
Yeah.
conversation entirely and never shut up.
And Narelle and I were talking about this earlier. I taught fourth grade for a while. It was when I came to San Diego. I had been in San Francisco, then been in North Carolina, and then been in San Diego. And predominantly Latino students in my class. And the girls in fourth grade stopped contributing at like halfway through the year. I mean, I don't know if it was a perfectionism thing, but it was more of a self awareness and wanting everybody else to feel good about what they were saying or like them. And I was like, this is not okay.
Mhm.
This is not okay because we need all these ideas. We need all our ideas together to create understanding. And if you guys don't contribute your ideas, I made them feel bad for
no.
not contributing. And I made them like get a tally sheet and tally because the boys were just contributing completely. It was in math mostly, because I specialized in teaching math. But yeah, it was really evident in fourth grade that there was sort of a perfectionism, self-consciousness started developing, at least with my kids in that culture, in that community. So it was
In
interesting.
my class, I ask how they want to participate.
And what do they like? Do you give them options, or do you just say,
Yeah, we do an introduction email that's like, what week are you looking forward to the most and why? So like some people, like we had an LGBT unit and they were like, but I'm specifically interested in youth. So then when
yeah,
I did it, I focused on LGBT youth. And then also like their names, what holidays they celebrate, because I wish them like happy Easter, blah 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 if they celebrate it. And then how they would like to participate. And yeah, I give them options like if they want to write notes and then give it to me, or if they want to like raise their hand and participate, or do they want to be called on? Because sometimes people want to, I feel like they want to be called on because that will force them to participate. Whereas if they're trying to like perfectionistically contribute their most
yeah,
like valuable thing, then they'll never do that because they're just too in their head.
yeah,
Whereas if you call them, they're like, oh shoot, I have to respond.
yeah.
That's what I asked Valenza to do with me. Do you remember that? We had the same professor for background. He was our freshman our freshman humanities seminar professor, and we were both really close with him in college, and I wanted to participate more in that class because I thought it was really interesting, but I was scared. And so I came up with an arrangement with him where he would like call on me and force me to participate.
So you just
But
had to, yeah.
yeah, and in that context I did like cold calling because we had like discussed it beforehand and talked about the best way for me to engage with the material more in the classroom, and I felt like we were sort of friends, so it wasn't like as intimidating.
That's what I was going to say. It seems to me like I was an elementary school teacher, right? And a big part of what my job was creating a community, right? And creating, but we were with the same people every day, all day, right? So creating a context where everybody knew their ideas were valued. Everybody, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that contributing hopefully wasn't as scary. You do know what I mean? Because there was, and we knew each other because we were with each other all day, every day.
Yeah.
And in college, when you get to higher ed, even high school, I don't think that's concentrated on that much. It's just,
Well, because you only have the class for
you
a
only,
short
right,
time.
you only have 50 minutes once a day or whatever. And then in college, yeah. So that relationship you had with that professor, right? So that you guys could talk about the purpose of him cold calling you and agree that this is what it is and be okay with it. That makes a big difference. And so cold calling without any relationship or without any relational stuff going on, I think is kind of cruel. I mean, I wouldn't like it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what I
law
mean?
school.
Yeah, that would be really rough, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason, I don't know, for me, being a teacher, I call myself a teacher, not as much an educator, because I feel like education is a system that I don't really buy into completely. But teaching and learning is something I feel like is really important. But as a teacher, I think being with somebody, like there's an energy, there's something going on between the people that you can't define that's generative. And on Zoom, it's not there. And so it was really hard for me on Zoom, especially with little ones. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. So
It was
yeah,
hard for me to teach on Zoom during the fires.
yeah,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't get the same cues, you don't get the same understanding when you're on a computer screen. I mean, it's great for some to connect when you can't connect, and it's great for some reasons, but I don't know. I think teaching is so much more abstract than that. That it's really hard to do it on.
And they had their cameras off. So
I know. And you're talking into a black hole.
that was really stressful.
That's not fun.
My kids would be like under the table.
Yeah.
I'm like, Ezekiel, where are you? Come out.
No. My sister had to do high school on Zoom for a while, which sounded horrendous. It's like back-to-back classes all day on Zoom. I would hate that. I mean, I had to do my first year of law school on
So you
Zoom,
did?
and that was awful.
Did they
It was
cold call?
really
Did they
they
cold call?
did, Well, so my parents are lawyers, and I think it was worse for them because I think like the old school legal education was more about like intimidating students,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm,
Yeah.
cold calling was more random too. So like you could just get called on at any time and you wouldn't know when or what day. But UC Davis at least was a bit more collegial, and I think they were trying to impress upon us that they actually wanted to create a comfortable environment in classrooms, but cold calling was still a thing. So it was just that most of the time we were put on panels, so we would know ahead of time like what day we would be on call and who we would be on call with and like what the topics of conversation would be and what readings we would have to do. So we could prepare, which was good and bad because then the stakes were higher and you were
Yeah.
expected to be prepared.
Yes.
But you also like weren't completely caught off guard and you could make sure you did the reading for that day.
Yeah, you didn't have to stress out every single day. You just had to
Yeah.
stress out that day you were on the panel. I mean,
Yes.
it's
I would
kind
stress
of
out like a week in advance.
yeah, yeah.
of course
I'm
you
sure
would,
I would too.
Amanda.
Well, I probably would
Yeah.
Of
too.
course you
Like
would.
that.
I'd be like, I'm
Never
on
know.
call next week.
I feel like I
It was
would
not
have in
good.
undergrad, but now in grad school, I'm
You're
like,
like, whatever.
yeah, I pick my own due dates. I was talking about this. I
Yeah.
pick my own due dates. And if I turn it in early, then I'm turning it in early. If I turn it in late, I'm turning it in late. And some teachers like it and some teachers not so much.
Interesting take, yeah.
Yeah, this is my new, like, I'm no longer a perfectionist take. But also, grades matter less. They matter more in law school, right?
Yeah, they matter too much in law school, I think.
Is it all it's on the curve, it's all competitive. It's not that you know the material, it's how you do in comparison to everybody else. Is that how they grade
Yeah,
you, Amanda? Yeah.
only like 30% of the class can get A's your first year of law
That's
school.
so I don't
That's wild,
I
yeah.
mean, how is
Yeah.
that learning? How is that learning? I just
It's not. It's
it's
for
not.
big law firms to recruit.
Right, it's part of the system. It's indoctrinating it to a s it's indoctrinating you into a system. Yeah, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
Do you feel glad that you went to law school even now after graduating and suffering your way through the job market?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of smart people in law school, so it was nice to be around people who were so engaged. Although I felt that way about college too. And one of my friends visited me when I graduated from law school, and she was like, "Amanda, these people are so dumb." So that
it's
was
all
interesting.
relative,
Yeah.
That was
but
interesting to
engaged.
hear.
They're engaged, so
Yeah,
everybody's
they were smart about the law, at
yeah,
least.
some things.
She saw them in a mini golf setting, so I don't know how that changed things. But
But in that setting, they weren't that smart. I was thinking that
yeah,
Nirel and I were talking about what a loaded word "smart" is.
Right.
Like, to me, I
yeah.
hate that word because it's yeah, it depends on the context. It depends on the era in history. It depends on so many different things, whether someone's considered smart or not. So yeah, mini golf, they're stupid. Or I don't like stupid either, but they don't know as much, or maybe they're not
Yeah.
as engaged. In law school they know a lot. So it's
I
interesting.
I I think it was more the emotional intelligence that she was
Yeah.
picking up on. Like she was just like, I don't know how to converse with these people, and also they're so unathletic. Why don't they know how to hit a golf ball?
Right, because to her, that's a smart person, right? Not
Yeah, and we were
Yeah.
on the track team,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
all of us. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a definition of intelligence, Amanda?
A definition of intelligence. I feel
Yeah,
like
or
it's
like what
so
when
many
you say like,
things.
oh, I like
That's a loaded
Yeah.
well, if you
loaded.
if people ask like, oh, what do you like in a person, and they'll say like, oh, that they're smart,
Yeah, I know.
and then what
Okay.
do you mean by that?
There are some like signs of intelligence, I think. One would be self-awareness. Two would be empathy, like compassion, empathy, or like just the ability to understand other perspectives, so maybe openness, I don't know. Um, I would say humor. Uh, I feel like I don't know if it's a thing that smarter people are kinder. I'm not sure. But I feel like confident people are kinder.
Well,
And
yeah, insecure people,
yeah,
right? Like
but
people who
maybe
know
that's,
themselves are rooted. Yeah.
yeah, maybe that's not tied to intelligence necessarily.
I think all of it is,
I don't know.
but
Yeah.
but I think that's a great, to me, I'm like, right on, right on, right on. All those things are so important. But like, what do you score on an IQ test? Like that, like society has this definition, I think, of intelligence that might not include empathy, might not include, emotional intelligence, might include how
Yeah.
much you can churn out information. It depends. It's
Yeah, this is what my undergrad thesis was about, actually, one of them that was on a term called emo rationality. And it was basically like the argument that you can't have rationality without emotions. Like they
right,
can't be
right.
detached because
There's no,
sometimes it's most rational to follow your emotions
yeah,
and like it's just, ridiculous. And
and we always do. There's no such. I don't think there's such thing as rationality. You're right. Without emotions, right?
yeah,
It just
and
they're connected. They're right.
part of what made me want to write that is that people would consistently say like Hitler was smart. Like they would be like, "Oh, like I think they meant strategic."
He was strategic.
But they would use the word smart. Like he might have been cruel, but he was smart. And I was like, that's not a thing. Like if you're cruel, you're not smart. There's something you're referring to something else.
Yeah.
And I was always really angry about that. And that's part of why I wanted to write it. And I actually part of why I went to Cuba because I was working with people that had been a part of or knew people that were a part of the Cuban literacy campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the Cuban literacy campaign is, Amanda?
I don't.
It was
It's
basically,
awesome.
do you want to explain it?
No, you. I'll just interject.
It
If
was
you say anything,
basically
I'll just interrupt you.
a movement that happened after like Castro and whatnot, like overthrew that current government. So once Cuba became communist, and they basically had people from the city like go into rural areas, but they were living in rural areas and like building community with those people and also teaching them how to read and write, like increasing the literacy. And Cuba's like literacy rate shot up. It was like way higher than the United States. Yeah, it's like super high. It's like 98% of people or something like
Yep.
that. Could fact check that though. I'm not sure.
No.
But
It's true. It's true. And it
Wow.
was a class thing. It was a class exchange
yeah.
as well as a literacy exchange. So there was a lot of things.
Yeah, and I compared that to SFUSD, San Francisco Unified School District, and was like, what,
Mm-hmm.
this lack of emo rationality is one of the reasons that I hypothesize why things were not as working as well in terms of like literacy and
Yeah.
reading rates. Yeah.
And when I went to Cuba, so I met a lot of people from that were on the campaign, and we met with like the Department of Education, the Cuban Department of
Oh, what
Education,
was
and
that like?
it was so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you sit down and you get a cafecito, cafe cubana, which is an espresso with sugar. You get to down it, and then they give you water. I remember that. I was like, "Ah, yeah, this is great." And then, so in the conversation, which I didn't speak much Spanish at the time, so it was translated, so you lose a little bit of something. But a teacher from Drew actually asked, God, what was her question? Something about God, some educational philosopher. I can't even remember, but developing
Was it Freire?
no, it wasn't for like Vygotsky
Okay.
and
Not familiar.
developing, but he was Russian,
Same.
developing the individual to their potential, right? And
Mm.
and how do you do that? Whatever. And basically, the woman was like, "That is not what we do. That is not our purpose. That it's so different than capitalism, right?" She's like, she didn't say that, but she said, "We're interested in developing the group. So
Mm.
everything we do is focused on developing the group and And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is so interesting because it wasn't, we want you to be able to read as best as you can, and we want
Mm-hmm.
you to be able to read as best as it's developing the group. It was just such a,
Interesting.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was, that is not what we do, she said. I was like, okay. then how the heck do you do it? Because I've never experienced anything but like individualized, get everybody up to their highest potential and, da 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 da, all that kind of stuff. So they were coming from a completely different paradigm.
Have you heard that
Yeah.
our head of the Department of Education in the US today doesn't know that AI is called AI and thinks it's called A1 because she thinks that the thinks that the I is a Roman numeral? Are you
I
aware
did
of that?
not know that.
Yeah,
I
she made this
really
whole
have stopped paying
Yeah,
attention to the
she was calling it
news.
A1.
I've stopped paying attention to the news. Not that I ever paid enough attention in the first place, but it's so depressing. I'm just like, I
Yeah,
should
we are
pay
also
more
not
And I
attention.
mean,
in national politics.
no, we
Yeah.
don't like that. And there were always problems with the Department of Education. I mean, they were huge. I mean, they did No Child Left Behind. They did a lot of really hurtful things, and they provided a lot of resources. You know what I mean? That were
Financial, you mean?
yeah, financial. I mean, I feel like that was their best contribution was we need this pot of money for kids with disabilities or that think differently, and we need this pot of money for second language learners, and we need, and you could get that from the federal government, and that's basically
Hmm.
Do you want to explain No Child Left Behind?
um do you guys don't know what
I do, but
man.
you
Yes,
mentioned
well,
it,
so
so
when I had been teaching 8 years and I was in San Francisco, and California was just kind of piloting a standardized test. Like, one of the reasons I think I became a really good teacher, okay, I'm gonna go on a rabbit hole,
okay.
is because we did not have a standardized test in my
Hmm.
first year of teaching. I could
You did
create
it?
no, ask your mom. There was no, I'm getting goosebumps. There was no standardized tests for like the first 4 years.
Wow.
You could be creative. We did collaborative projects. Ask your mom. It was so we were just cutting edge, doing such amazing things. But we'd work all weekend together, planning stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
just it was great. And then they started piloting this thing called the STAR test.
Right.
And I'm like,
Oh,
why are
I
we
remember
doing this?
that.
Whatever, what? Okay. So then I moved to North Carolina, first state to implement standardized testing. That's where Bush got the idea, was from North Carolina. So full on big test every year at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the year. And so that's what No Child Left Behind is, a national standard where every
Oh.
state, they don't have to give the same test, but every state needs to have their own test, right? Or a test that they pick from the big the industrial test making complex
Mm-hmm.
where companies make
The
so
College
much
Board
money.
Industrial
Yes, the College Board Industrial Complex. Seriously. And then so every state had to have a test. But what ends up happening then, and even I suffered from this, is you worry about how your kids are going to do on that stupid test
Right.
that doesn't really,
Yeah. What does it do for you? What does it
yeah.
even do for
And I
you?
would, I would start crying. I remember in front of my kids in San Diego and tell them they were so empathetic to me. They're like, Miss Montana, it's okay. And that no test could measure how smart they were.
Mm-hmm.
No test could ever measure what da 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 da. And you got to work your ass off on this test and do your best. I mean, so these total mixed messages because you're going to be judged by it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that you're going to be judged by it. So anyway, No Child Left Behind, I think, was an awful thing. Although when I lived in North Carolina, I did a lot of work with a guy named Charles Payne, who is now emeritus, but he was the head of the African American Studies department at Duke, and he specialized in urban education. So I got to meet Bob Moses, Charlie Cobb, like all these killer activist educators when I
Oh,
was
out
there.
there.
And his niece was in my class, and I was talking to him because I hated the test. And he said, the research I've done on the test, Libby, as the schools that were performing at the very, very bottom with the kids who needed the most, it did bring them up. Like it made the teachers, and I don't want to diss
Oh, teach
teachers.
to another level.
Yeah, I don't want to diss teachers because
Mm.
at this, but they had to come prepared. They had to, and so it got up to here. But once you get up to here, there's no, there's no benefit, and it doesn't even get you halfway. It gets you like to there. Yeah, I just think. Yeah, in my imagination, teachers would have a really, really good understanding of the whole realm of what their kids need to learn when they're all from K to 5, and then you teach them, and you teach them how you want to teach them, but you're responsible but teachers don't know that. You know what I mean? You're responsible for making sure that they learn
Your
this sort of
content.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But
very familiar with standardized testing and all the hoops you have to jump through because I had to do that for law
well,
school.
LSAT. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Yeah.
that I hated the
And then the
LSAT.
bar, right?
Yeah, the bar exam. I just feel like it becomes problematic when this big test becomes such an important part of your education because then your entire education is like tailored towards you passing that test. So I feel like law school, like, yes, it helped me pass the bar and I felt prepared to pass the bar and I did pass the bar the first time, but did it prepare me to actually practice law? And I think that's a big, like, criticism of legal education now is that it doesn't really actually prepare you to be a lawyer because you're just reading old cases and like analyzing them, but you're not like doing what you would do day to day as an attorney.
Is that what the bar is? I don't know. What's the content of the bar?
They just give you, well, it's 200 multiple choice questions, I think, and then a bunch
Is it
of
Great.
about
essays.
cases or is it reasoning?
No, they give you a fact pattern and you just have to answer questions about it and issue spot
What in the world is that? What's
and
a fact
apply
pattern?
like an actual situation that
Okay.
could,
That has certain.
yeah, and then you have to like apply the law to the facts. And so in law school you read cases so that you learn how to do that, like analyze how the law applies to the facts and that sort of thing. Like basically the entire semester is just reading and being called on in class and like outlining the course to prepare for the final, and then the final is like 100% of your grade. So you don't have assignments throughout the semester like you do in college.
Right.
Like it would be really helpful if we were like researching and writing throughout the semester every year, but it's just like one class where we do that. I find that really confusing.
Researching and writing is how you learn.
It also just like the legal field is so diverse that there are so many different kinds of environments you could work in, and they're all extremely different from each other. Like working at a nonprofit is so different than working at like a big law firm.
Oh yeah.
Which you didn't
So
want to do, right?
no,
Like
I
in-house counsel for Netflix.
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
the.
well, that's in-house. That's another thing
Oh,
entirely.
That's
that's a
not even a
different
law
thing.
firm that they come hire out, but still, both of
Yeah.
those, yeah, kind of intense. In-house counsel for Google. Yeah, I'm doing some volunteer work down at the immigration court, and I gave these two. There are some just amazing immigration attorneys that work for like immigration justice project and stuff that are doing pro bono stuff. And this one, she's a really cool lawyer, and she had her two assistants with her, and they needed a ride home because she had to run up. They're so overworked. She had to like run up to 40 miles away in like 5 minutes. And so I'm like, well, they live kind of near me. I'll give them a ride home. So it was really delightful talking to both of them. One was still an undergrad, a really perky, like, and really passionate young white girl, and she had interesting things to say. But the other guy, and I'm forgetting his name, was an immigrant from Afghanistan, and he was a finance guy, and he decided that it was so meaningless him doing finance that he knew the immigration experience and was passionate about it and just wanted, and so he was almost ready to, I think, go to law school. I mean, I don't think he'd even been to law school. I think he was just clerk. I don't know. What do you do?
Pre-law?
I don't know.
Like
He's educated. I mean, he was in
okay.
finance, so but he wanted to become an immigration lawyer, so he started working. And they were doing research for her and things like that. But really, really passionate people, that were into it and wanted to go into
Yeah.
that kind of law. And that kind of law, I'm assuming, is more like nonprofit law and is completely different than being counsel for
Yeah.
Google or FaceTime or something like that,
Mhm.
So
Yeah, immigration law is kind of, I mean, every field is sort of its own thing in a way.
yeah, there's
But yeah.
they were really cool people. Really cool. Like they give me hope. Young people give me hope. When I talk to you guys, it gives me hope. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, some people are definitely in law school for the right reasons. Some people are not there for the right reasons. So it depends. But I think money is a big motivating factor for a lot of people,
for a lot of
which is
people to become lawyers.
yeah, which is unfortunate in my opinion. But
I mean, if you have to pay for school, lots of times you have to make money when you get out, right?
yeah, no, but like their reason for wanting to be a lawyer is because they want to make a lot of money. And
Not
I feel
just
like
to pay back
that's,
their classic, yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's not really a good enough reason.
Yeah,
That's the sole
exactly.
reason.
Yeah.
But it's how the world works, I guess.
Hmm.
Well, you went to grad school. How did you feel about it?
I did not like grad school. I went to grad school at UNC in North Carolina when I moved to North Carolina, and I thought it was after teaching with Nirel's mom in San Francisco, and that was like the best teaching experience I ever had because we had so much autonomy and there was no standardized test, and we were in this great school with great leadership and great teachers, great kids, great everything. And so I thought, okay, well, I am going to get my PhD in education and just write a whole bunch of policy that allows for schools like Charles Drew. Like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, what's the problem for like a school? And I ended up leaving with my master's. I didn't like the culture of the academy. I felt like people were there, and I can argue with the best of them, but I felt like people were there solely to promote their own ideas and criticize other people's ideas without listening and without taking in what was good about somebody's idea. You know what I mean? It wasn't my thing. Talk about cold calling. Like, I didn't want to say anything
Mm.
in my
No.
seminars. I was just like, I don't want to say anything because you people are all, on edge.
Yeah, I feel like UCLA is like that. Like
Yeah,
people
no,
jump
I
down
do
each other's throats.
do not
Somebody
fit.
was
Ew.
saying like people
Yes.
just need to raise their hand and they need to share and stuff. And I was like, I don't feel safe with you guys.
No, no,
This is not a community. I'm not sharing anything
anything.
because they really want, at least in the social work program, and this is my perspective, they really want like the same opinions. Like they said, they're
Yeah.
almost pushing propaganda
Yep.
about whatever their thing is. And usually it's some sort of like social justice, social commentary thing. But it's like the number of times that we learned about intersectionality, which is not a hard concept. It literally is like everyone has intersections,
Right.
it's in the name.
Right.
And everyone gets it because they have intersections. And we learned about it so many times. I was like, this is insane. They want the same opinions on pronouns. They want the same opinions on
Yeah.
Palestine. They want the same opinions to the
Oh.
extent where, like, in our school classes, you can't talk about Israel or Palestine because they're like, it's just too emotionally charged of a topic and like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, aren't we supposed to be learning
Right.
about
And trying to listen to other people's perspectives, even if you disagree with them.
I did.
I will say that in law school, I feel like people did have very different perspectives on things. There's one girl who didn't believe in private property.
I
And
see that.
yeah, no, she grew up, I think, in like a pretty well-off community near Sacramento, so that was interesting. But she got into a fight with this other student who was a landlord. So
Yeah.
yeah. That was encouraged, I think, like open dialogue. But there are some opinions where I'm like, I don't know if there were a bunch of Trump supporters, I don't think I would want to hear what they had to say, but I don't know. Maybe it is good to talk though. Like for them.
If they were open to hearing what you had to say, I think it's different. Like, even if they're a Trump supporter. But I feel like, and I'm generalizing, but there are Trump supporters. Well, there are a lot of Kamala supporters too, who aren't really open to hearing what anybody else has to say. Do you know what I mean? They want to bully you and convince you that that's the way it is, and they think you're stupid if you don't think it's that way. And that goes both ways with political arguments sometimes.
And
And
it
what you
even
were
goes
saying at UCLA
inside.
too, yeah.
Yeah,
So
inside the
I
same
feel like
groups.
if a Trump supporter was real, because I made phone calls in the last election where the group I was working with, we were targeting white voters that were likely Trump voters in the swing states, right? So that's who I was talking to, and mostly decent conversations, and mostly, not always, but mostly people, we listened to each other. I did not agree with what they were saying. They were scared of immigrants. They thought the economy was going to be better. But they could listen to me, and I could listen to them. So that was okay, even though I didn't. Those conversations were okay, even though I was like, "We're going down because nobody's voting for Kamala,
Mhm.
and I can't convince them, that this is gonna be worse." But yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting. Sometimes I feel like I can talk to Trump supporters, but not all of them. Not the ones that are gonna try and bully me and tell me I'm wrong, you know?
Yeah, I think it just gets really difficult when someone is so convinced that they're right that they won't even entertain any other thoughts. And it's like there's no point in speaking to you then because,
And that goes both ways. That's on the left and the right.
Mhm.
I feel like
yeah.
that kind of approach can come from a Trump supporter or from, I don't know, a totally progressive person too,
Yeah, or a
Yeah.
communist.
or a
Like this
communist.
queen that you mentioned.
Like
Yeah.
the no pro I mean, and I get the premise that private property is kind of the root of all evil, but it's like we are so entrenched in it.
I know,
You
like,
can't just get rid of it. I mean, do you own a
yeah.
sock? That's your private property. Do you I mean,
That was
it's hard
that
living
was
in this
the issue.
country, but you can't, you've gotta be able to balance so many contradictions, and not just poo-poo people because they own a pair of shoes or something.
And there are different kinds
Yeah.
of landlords too, where
Yeah,
it's
there
like
are. There's
there's like
slumlords,
the
yeah.
family home and then there's like I own all of the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
Like there's like different
Yeah.
kinds of landlords and there's, somebody was talking about like how rent control is set up in San Francisco, which is like, for the tenant.
Tenant, but it's hard.
And during COVID, when you didn't have to pay rent and like single landlords were like losing their
Mhm,
homes because like
mm,
they still had to pay their mortgages
mhm.
or they would like default on their property taxes and
Yep,
like these different things. And people were like, rah, rah, landlord going down. And it's like, that's just like the local
but then that
neighbor.
house is down,
Yeah.
and that person
And who swoops it
yeah,
up?
it's
Some
gonna be worse.
corporation.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think
it's
that wealth is
costly.
not inherently exploitative. And I think that it is a matter of like capping it
Yeah,
essentially. Like nobody needs to be a billionaire, in my opinion.
yep.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of people that I've interacted with, especially because like they're socialists or whatever,
Mhm.
they really disagree with that. They think wealth is inherently exploitative.
Well, are they democratic socialists or
Yeah, democratic
and they really
socialists.
huh, huh, that's interesting.
I think this conversation came up because we were talking about like whether beaches should be private, like whether there should be private beaches.
Oh god.
Yeah.
So you could have socks.
I guess, but the
Yes, can't have
issue
private beaches.
the issue with this person is that she would like propose these radical things, or she would say that we shouldn't have like police, like defund the police, but then she had no alternatives. Like when the professor would be like, "Okay, so what should we do instead?" She'd be like, I don't know."
That's where
So,
you get
Yeah, that's where
people that have theory but no praxis or no
yeah.
practice because
and
they've
it's
never done anything in that field, so they don't have any
and I
ideas.
feel like that's one reason I didn't like grad school too, is because I felt like even though people had experience in education,
Mhm.
I feel like at that point they were so far removed from what was really going on in the day to day in the classroom. And they were talking about all this, education policy, education theory, education, and it all goes to hell once you actually sit. Not all of it, it gives you a framework to think things through,
No
but
need for policy.
most of it, I mean, you need policy, but it wasn't being enacted. It wasn't the impact of the policy wasn't what people were thinking it was, or wasn't what it was intended to be. And then, all of that. And I felt like I
Yeah.
can't do this. This is way not. I want to be with the people and be with thinking with people in little ones and teaching them. I can't like do all this policy stuff.
Yeah, a lot of things sound like a good idea, but then in practice, like, how's it going to play out? Like, if we don't have police, if we don't have private property, there need to be some limits on that.
And I think one of the problems with policy is that it's created and it's implemented and it's never evaluated.
Mhm.
It just goes on forever, even if the impact is completely opposite than what was intended, or there's all these unintended intended consequences, and then it's never readdressed, and so it just gets
Or the evaluation
Like-
is there and it's bad and they still don't change anything.
Or that, maybe.
Or they just let it go.
Yeah.
Like I've been studying health economics and economic policy, like how to make our economy better because everyone's unemployed. We're like working 3 jobs cobbled
Right.
together to make ends meet. And a lot of the policies that I was studying, they have been evaluated. We know they don't work
And they're still
and they're still going on.
Yeah.
And like people are even fighting to like increase them or whatever. And it's like,
but
did you
it's not working.
not
Yeah,
read? I guess they didn't read the literature. Though.
That's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
I think people are afraid of change a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's a Machiavelli quote about that. Have I said it on the podcast before or no?
I don't know. What is it?
I said it to you. Machiavelli, the political philosopher who I studied in undergrad because I studied political philosophy, he was like a guy that was talking basically about how to create new empires and new orders. Like if you want to radically change the world that you're in and like how to establish power in changing regimes, like between one king and another. And he's most famous for saying like to be feared is better than to be loved. But there's like more context to that. However, in this particular case, he says that changing the world or changing the like regime for the better is always difficult because you have against you everyone who won't benefit from the change, and then you also have against you everyone who will benefit from the change but like haven't seen the change yet, and so they don't believe it can exist.
Yep.
And I think that's
it's true. I think that's really true. And the masses, right, don't understand, don't trust that anyone is going to change anything to help them because it hasn't happened in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that reminds me of like that idiom or something, like when people choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. It's because they're so afraid of like the unknown and what could happen. Whereas everything is so predictable in their existing world that they're just comfortable staying in it, even if it could be better.
Your point about like the masses not believing that anyone can change anything. We were talking a bit about anti-intellectualism, which I guess is maybe not the best term to describe it. But,
Right.
people pushing back on formal education in a lot of different ways and wanting to change the way that like people are being educated, but in ways that are not necessarily like accurate.
Right. It does. I mean, it does need to be changed, but then who's going to do the changing and who has the power over the changing? Yeah. The wrong people are pushing for the power. When I think of anti-intellectualism, I think of my friends, my progressive friends who live in Berkeley in big houses and have kids that went to private schools and and are very intellectual, right? And think they know more than anybody else. I mean, I'm not an anti-intellectual, but I get it. I get it because I do think there's a disdain.
Yeah.
And it's valid to like criticize. That criticism, I think, was valid. It just wasn't coming from the right people. It needed to come from within, for us to look at ourselves and say, how are we part of this problem? Instead of blaming it all on people
in Florida.
Yeah.
Like, Florida should secede from the union. I was like,
I would get in lots of arguments with my very wealthy Berkeley friends. And they just thought they knew. They just thought they knew everything. And it was like, you went to Berkeley, you went to Harvard. Yeah, you have a great education, but I don't think you know everything. But I don't know. I think it's what education has become. I don't know. I think education's different for different people. I think when you're from a higher class, it's about learning. It's about true learning, or you want your education to be about exploring and learning and la la la. But then, if you friggin' need to work because no one in your family has ever been to college, it's about, I need to check off these boxes so I can get a job. Who cares what I learn, or, what I don't know. It's got different meanings depending on who you are.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think anti-intellectualism is?
I think of people in Texas that are like, stop coming from New York and telling me what to do.
Right.
Like, period. Like, just stop with your elitist bullshit.
Yeah.
Stop with thinking, like you said, that you know more than me about my life and what we need to change about this and that. Like, go home. That's what I think of. And I agree with that.
It's not. Yeah, I do too. It's
Even though I'm moving there. But
Well, it's the opposite of let's get really close to whatever problem we're thinking about or whatever we're trying to solve or trying to know about, and know that we can't be of it. We can be in it, but we can't be of it because we need the people who are of it to educate us about what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
it's the opposite of the Cuban literacy campaign.
Yeah. Although Cuban literacy campaign, those were some middle class privileged Cubans who did that revolution, and then they sent themselves out into the campo to go teach the poor people. I mean, there was an element of that.
But they lived there. They weren't telling them what.
Castro made them live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did live there. But yeah, it's tricky though. Anyway.
Maybe it's not like anti-intellectualism. Maybe it's like anti-elitism. More so. I feel like they really need to like teach people how to have social skills, to be honest. Because I think that's the root of a lot of problems.
That can be taught in a class.
I think in elementary school.
I don't know. But I think it's so important to survive in the world and like to actually have conversations with people, to connect with other people. Like you want to maintain some level of curiosity about others instead of just like being able to learn information and regurgitate it, or like, I don't know. I think people don't like leaders who are just intellectuals and that's it. You have to be able to like relate to other people and to understand other people and to like be able to apply these theories and the knowledge that you have to like different situations and to be adaptable and a nice person.
But don't you think that we're naturally inclined, and I don't know if you identify with this or not, but I would assume you do. We're naturally like inclined towards curiosity. Like that's something that we value and we're curious people. Like I don't know if that can be taught.
Yeah, I don't
But to be, yeah, it's different. Okay. And curiosity, I mean, I think to be curious about people is different than to be curious about plants
Right.
or curious
Yeah.
about policy. You know, I think that what Amanda was saying, like be able to relate to people, you know, and be able to listen and be able to be curious about how do you think about this? And I do think that's lacking once you get to a certain intellectual elitism. Like I know, and you don't know because you're poor or you are living in this place or, you know, and I'm not curious about what you think because you don't know anything. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Well, Nirel and I talked about this before, but like the best professors and teachers that I've had, I felt like tried to connect with students emotionally and not just intellectually. Like I had this teacher in high school who would gather everyone together some days and just be like, "How are you guys feeling? Like, what's going on?" I thought that was so nice. And like just treating people like human beings in a learning environment instead of like, I don't know, people
Machine.
who,
Just
machines.
lines or something.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple. And I mean, I feel like that's what I was trying to say about cold calling. Like, if there's a culture where you know each other and safety has been created and a community has been created, then I don't know if there's any such thing as cold call. I mean, cold calling has a completely different meaning because we're a community. And if I want, okay, Nirel, I want to hear what you have to say, you'll be like, okay, well, this is what I think. You know, you feel safe.
Did you have a favorite teacher growing up?
Okay, let me think. I can tell you when I started cutting class.
Yeah, sure.
I was in 4th grade because I'm thinking of my bad teachers. This is really wild. I'm not thinking, but I had this teacher that was supposed to be like the bee's knees, really progressive for the times. This is in the 70s, right? And she had like open classroom and you could do your creative writing whenever you wanted. You could do your math from like a workbook whenever you wanted. Lots of animals in the classroom, like a library with a couch, and super disorganized. And she yelled at us all the time. And I realized that after lunch recess, she didn't really know who came back in the classroom and who didn't. And I was a good student. I never pushed back. I got all my work done. So I would just go into this. I put a paper towel in the back of the school cafeteria where there was uneven parallel bars on the stage. And then they would all go in and I'd sneak up to the cafeteria and play on the bars for a while. And then I just slip back in the classroom, like go sit down and pretend like I was doing my math.
Mhm.
So I did have that teacher. Best teacher, I really liked my high school chemistry teacher. She was young. She was hilarious. Um, God, I liked my college English poetry teacher. He was so interesting, and he would use Elvis Costello lyrics to teach us poetry.
Also ahead of its time.
Also ahead of
Because
his
they're
time.
doing that with hip hop.
Yeah, so he was using, but I really didn't have that many good teachers, and I went to like the best public schools, like the highest rated. Like, oh, everybody goes to college. These are the highest rated public schools, and I didn't really have that many good teachers. Did you? Do you remember? Do you guys? That's really sad. But
Yeah.
I don't really. There's not like one teacher that stands out.
I had really good teachers in college.
Yeah.
That I'm still like really close with. Like go over to their houses. Like I sent one of them a Mother's Day card.
Oh,
But I still feel like I made it all the way through undergrad without being able to critically think. So I
yeah.
had like really good relationships with them. But I feel like, and I was like taught the content well.
Yeah, but you weren't. Yeah.
Didn't you feel like Valenza helped you think more critically? Or at least I felt like he helped me think more about myself and like my values and beliefs.
What did he teach? What was he teaching?
Freshman humanities seminar.
He asked us a lot about like the kind of life that we wanted to live and like those sort of philosophical questions, which is part of what our friendship was based on, like having those sort of conversations. But I don't know that he
Had
really
you-
made us critically think.
Had you thought about that before?
No, but
Yeah.
I think I was thinking about tons of things that were, you know, tangentially related. I think that, and I remember Amanda saying like, "Oh, I just like that he doesn't have favorites," and I was like, "He does. We're his favorites."
When you're in a position of
Yeah, he
like,
likes that.
like no, he loves
We're
us.
in the clique.
But
Yeah,
but
that's true.
But we were also really close with him. Like we went to his house and stuff, baked cookies.
but he did teach you. I mean, he did teach you to think about what you wanted out of life.
Yes.
And then he didn't take that next step and say, "Okay, now let's critique this." Like,
Yeah.
you're like, how, is this is this going to be best for you or whatever? Or how do you know if it's working or not working? I don't know.
Yeah, like is this culturally enforced? Is this like
why do you think this?
yeah, or like I disagree. Why are you still thinking this? You know, that sort of thing. That's what I try to do with my class. Inspire curiosity, critical thinking, and I think that those things are indicative of whether or not you're a good teacher. And also like if they feel like they can do something with the knowledge that they've learned. So that's really what I focus on. At least in the, you know, humanities.
We did talk about like social norms over time, like comparing them. Remember we had that one project about like dating culture in the past versus now and whether we have like too much freedom now as opposed to like we're not repressed anymore, but is it too far the other extreme?
Is it out of balance?
Yeah.
Didn't you have something like that in your poetry class too? Or like he was saying people like tragedies more than love stories or
Yeah. Actually, that happened in two different classes. My poetry professor said that people want to read more poems about like war and death than love now. And then my history professor asked how many of us had been in love. And she was like, wow, fewer and fewer people each year have experienced love. I'm like, that's concerning. So,
Yeah. And love is so loaded, I think, too.
well, like romantic relationships.
She was talking romantic.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is romantic love? I mean, because romantic, I don't know. Yeah. Because there's attraction and you think you love this person because they're so hot. And you just, you know what I mean?
But
and
don't
then
you think when
that
you know, you know?
develops-
Because that's how I feel. Like I
You
feel
really
when
know.
you
Like,
know.
You really know.
When you know, you know. Maybe it's like in retrospect, you know. Maybe it's like, but I just feel like.
I think it's timing. I think it's timing and a numbers game. I'm sorry.
Mm.
Is that really cynical?
But that's
I'm
dating, not
not
love.
saying-
No, it's not who you fall in love with.
Yeah.
That's who you date and stay with.
I think you can fall in love a bazillion times in your lifetime.
I don't.
You're not going to end up partnered with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like the one, if there has to be a one, I have this whole issue with marriage, but and I'm married and I'm in a monogamous relationship, so I'm a total hypocrite. But um, I don't think that there is a one for anybody.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But love, like, it's like if you've been in love. When I was your age, if someone had asked me that, I would have said no. Not romantically at that time. I would.
Yeah. I think that's normal.
Yeah, I think it's normal.
But I feel like she was getting at, like, the fact that maybe people are in fewer committed relationships than they used to. Like, I feel like now people settle less than they used to, but like being in a relationship isn't as normalized, maybe.
Heterosexuals, I think.
So maybe
specifically.
fewer people experience that at a younger age. Also, people are like waiting until later to like get married, like growing up at a slower pace.
I think, yeah. I mean, partnering with one person for the rest of your life is ridiculous. You have to settle. There's so many things you have to settle and negotiate, and it's not that you don't love each other. It's just that love changes. It doesn't stay the same the whole time.
Yeah.
And what you can wish for is that you grow together and that you allow each other to be your individual selves the whole time in the relationship. And I don't know, and you know that you care for that person and they care for you.
Mm-hmm.
But when I met Joanne, it was like, oh my God. It was kind of
For
like,
why?
oh yeah, that's the person. But I think it was a numbers game. I think it was how old I was.
You mean like how much you dated when you say a numbers game?
Yeah, like how many people
Like you
I
just
knew
have
in
to
my
keep
life.
yeah.
Yeah, and how old I was and how well I knew myself, and it just happened. So I think if you're I don't know. I think there's a time where it can happen. But maybe it
Right,
would have
right.
happened with someone else besides Joanne if she wasn't there in the room. I don't know. I don't know. I was ready to be single the rest of my life. So anyway, it's tricky. That love thing or committed relationship. I think committed friendships too are really, really important relationships.
Friendship
Yeah.
breakups are terrible.
Have you had many?
I've
I
had
You have, but
one big one,
Yeah.
and then I've had another like small one, but we're friends now again.
did you know him for a long time
Mm,
or just a little? Yeah.
We were just really close.
While you were, yeah.
Yeah, and then we tried dating, and then it
That
went to
went to
shit.
shit. Yeah. I could see that happening. Wait, Amanda, so have you broken up with friends?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like one person said like, I don't want to be your friend anymore, but it's like we got into a big argument
And you just
and things just spun out of control and we stopped communicating, I guess.
And do you guys feel like you'll ever break up? I
I
mean,
don't
never
think
say never. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, but
I don't think so. We already
I
had
hope not.
Shit. Break up right now. Let's do it.
for the bit, for the plot. Yeah, we had one big fight and we like navigated our way through it, and it was really interesting. Like my therapist brought that up as something that was really important for my development because I had never really had that, like a big conflict, and Amanda had. So she was like able to help us navigate our way through that better. But when we started this podcast, Amanda was like, yeah, there are these podcasters that I know that were friends and now they don't talk to each other anymore. So just be
No, you guys
careful.
probably will. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many different types of friendships, I think. I have really old friendships that I will never break up with those people. Like with your mom, and I don't even have to see her.
Mhm.
Like I see her and it goes right back. So those are the people I consider my really good friends now. But I've had moving around. I've had acquaintances. I'm a very social person, so I'll move to a new place and I meet people and they like me and they want to do stuff, and so I'll do stuff with them for about 2 months, and then I'll realize, oh God, I'm getting nothing out of this. And I like, there was no word for it, but I will like just stop responding. It's not very nice.
Ghosting?
Yeah. And yes, now
No.
there's the word ghost, and Joanne thinks I have issues. Joanne's like, you have
Well,
time. But
yeah.
they were situational. I was new. I needed some social interaction. It was working for a while, and then I was like, it's not working anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know. but it's not very nice. So if someone does that to me, I am not going to be mad at that person because I've done it to other
I mean,
people.
sometimes it's good to have an
Yeah.
explicit conversation, but also sometimes that's the way they weasel their way back in.
Yeah, so you just gotta let it go
Yeah, because they're like,
because they make you feel guilty
or they're like, oh, I completely understand what you've been saying.
Yeah.
Oh, change. Oh,
Yeah.
change. Yeah, and then it's like, oh God, look at this person. They weasel their way back
Yeah.
in when I was trying to say like no, but I think it's so sad because you learn so much. Not friendship breakups; those happen, but I think that you learn so much from friendships. Speaking of
Yeah.
like formal education and ways to learn outside of formal
Right.
education, I feel like
It's
friendship has played such a big role in my life. And then there are other things, of course, like museums, murals, walking around,
right.
talking to
Do you
people.
like murals?
I like murals. I used to go on them, like mural walks a lot
Yeah.
in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my mom was really big on that. Like she would take us out of, I think in middle school, she would take us out of middle school and
To
take
go
us to museums and stuff. And she would make pretty explicit, like formal education is not the only way
Yep.
you can learn. That was like a big thing. But of course, she could only do that because she was a stay-at-home mom,
Right. At that
which
time.
was, yeah, at that time, which was
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you learn best outside of school, Amanda? You like to
Mm,
read, right?
honestly, I don't read that much
Oh, okay.
because I felt like I read so much in college and in law school that it's just, yeah, I got burnt out, I guess. But I've been trying to
School
read more.
ruined reading for you, Amanda.
It kind of did. I used to read a lot as a kid,
Mm.
but I feel like I've lost that ability to get like totally immersed in a world that I'm reading about. But maybe it's just because of lack of practice. So, learning. Well, I like watching like TV and movies and talking to people, having new experiences. That sounds really big, but traveling. I enjoy like that's I guess how I like to immerse myself in other cultures and
This is
learn
learning.
things.
I think
Yeah.
what you guys are doing now, like having a
Conversations.
yes, abs 100%.
I learned the best through dialogue. And I
Mhm.
used to feel really bad about it because reading is considered so much more
Exactly.
like, you
The
know,
school
whatever.
thing. You have to be
Yeah,
a good reader and sit by yourself
yeah,
and
which
read
I
by
love
yourself.
reading. But and I still only read nonfiction, except for romance novels. But anyway, and they I used to feel really bad about it. But if I was interested in an academic topic or something, I just wanna like write to the person who had written about it and be like, hey,
Yeah.
can we have a 15-minute chat? I didn't want to read their whole whatever.
Thing.
Now I listen to a lot of podcasts because it's kind of similar where it's more like a dialogue, but I definitely learn the best through dialogue and like auditory learning, even though they claim that's not a thing now. Did you know that? It used to be, you know how it used to be broken
What?
up of
Yeah.
like some are kinesthetic, some are whatever. And
Well,
apparently studies show now that that's not a thing and certain people don't learn certain ways. And I was like, well, I think I'm
Wait, what?
well, they do. I think certain people do. I always thought those were really pigeonholy studies. I
Mm.
never liked any of those. Like, okay, what kind of learner are you? I think in different contexts, you're a different kind of learner. And I think you like auditory and you know it
That's
works for
true.
you. But I think in some contexts, you could be a different kind of learner.
Well, I like reading.
I mean, yeah,
So
look,
there's that.
you like reading. So
Yeah.
it's like to pigeonhole people into a certain style. I was never into that because I think it depends on what's going on in your brain at the time and where you are. I don't know. It's too complicated.
I feel like in an academic or work setting, I'm not auditory. Like I need to see it written down and I need to write things down. But then if I'm just like living my life normally, I do like learning through dialogue and having conversations with people. So that's
You like
interesting.
documentaries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like consuming stories in general, like
Stories
in
are a good
different
way to learn.
formats.
Movies
Yeah.
are a great way to learn because it is like being able to immerse yourself in an experience. You know, it's like moving to Texas. Like it's being able to immerse yourself in an experience that's so different than it can really change the way that you see the world.
Yeah, but I love all this. I love reading.
Hmm.
I love watching movies. I love listening to podcasts. And afterwards, I want to talk about them. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like if I just do that, if I just listen to a podcast and it had all these cool ideas, I feel like, okay, somebody else
I
has
need
to
to
listen to this
blab.
and I need to blab about it
Yeah.
now. Or if I see a movie that I really like, I'm like, oh my God, Narelle, you have to watch this movie and then call me. You know, I just,
Mhm.
I get, or a book, same thing. It's like, just call me when you've read it and let's talk about it. I just feel like that's always a component. Um,
Mhm.
but I can learn in lots of different ways. But then at one point, and I do have to write it down though, Amanda, too. I do. Like even if I'm listening to a podcast and there's ideas that are important to me, I go get my journal and I do. It helps me to write them down. You know, to process. I don't know.
I do
Hmm.
not do well with that. If I write it down, I completely miss it.
Forget it. Yeah.
I miss
Just
the
I
words.
wish.
I'm not paying attention at all.
I always wish I could do that. But I think I'm worried about not being able
Not
to recall it.
yeah.
So then but then you're right. And then I'm missing. So there are some days where I'm like, I'm not writing anything down. I'm just going to listen and
Because
see
I
where it
was like,
goes.
this is why I'm naturally inclined towards schools. Lectures really work for me. Lectures,
Right.
like
That's
the
why you're a school
auditory,
girl.
yeah, the auditory stuff really works for me. And I remember being, like writing a essay for a test, and I didn't know the answer. I hadn't studied it, and I recalled the lecture.
So you're like,
Yeah, so I was like writing down what he had said, and even what he was like, "Great job," and I was
yeah,
like, "You,
that's what you
yeah, this is what you said word for word, my king." But yeah, I remember that.
see. And I need to think about this because one of the things I'm doing in immigration court is sometimes I go into one of the courtrooms, right?
Mhm,
And my job, sometimes I'm with people accompanying them, but sometimes I'm just in there too. And you're not supposed to record and you're not supposed to be writing stuff down. You're just supposed to
mhm.
be listening. But I have my little notepad and I'm trying to like write stuff down, but then I miss what just happened. You know, I need to just let the notepad go, I think, when I'm in there and just listen and take it all in and remember, okay, this is, whatever, Manuel Jimenez and he's wearing a green sweater. And you know what I mean? I just, so I can remember who the people are and what's going on and what the judge said. It's hard because I do have to write it down, but then I do miss things. Anyway, I don't know. I got to work that out or
Mhm.
get shorthand. I need to know shorthand symbols, not whole words. So.
Last thing I wanted to talk about, and then feel free to add anything that we haven't talked about yet. Um, but to my point about how education really works for me, we were talking
Yeah.
earlier about how school is set up for like particular
Certain
people, and you had mentioned class.
Mhm.
But I'm reading a book called Of Boys and Men right now. A, because I'm interested in it, but B, because it's like related to my work with men's mental health. And it talks a lot about how the education system is set up better for women,
Mhm.
and it has to do with like self-regulation, like women being more mature earlier and being able to like sit still and pay attention to like whatever the class content is, and then also having way more female teachers than male teachers. And like he has a couple of other things that he discusses. And then with education policies, especially what they're calling DEI now, but like affirmative action and different policies that were supposed to help like broaden who got into education.
They benefit the woman.
They benefited women the most. And people don't really want to have conversations about it. But you said it was similar even when you
That
were
I
teaching.
think that's all true, and I think though if you take it a step further, if you look at employment, men still have all the highest positions.
Hmm.
You know, so that's true. I think that is definitely true. What's going on in school, and then
The
there's a
pay gap.
disconnect afterward. But
Yeah.
given that, okay, you are teaching second grade at Charles Drew. We had choice time in the afternoon. And this is my first year teaching. And I had a dress up area, right? The whole little, and you could choose dress up area. And one day the dress up area was like so different. Like I couldn't even see the kids in it. They were crawling on the ground and all I heard was grunting and da, da, da. They went over there and it was all boys. Dress up area. And I'm like, oh my God, usually there's at least one girl there.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a girl, they organize it. It's like, okay, we're going to play teacher or we're going to do whatever. And it's like a little bit organized and something's going on. But the day that girls, it was like, oh my
Like
God.
cavemen.
Anyway, so there are differences. I just think there are inherent differences. And I don't think sitting down and being organized benefits boys as much. Some boys, but benefits boys as much as it benefits girls. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Anyway,
Hmm.
basically arguing for kind of like young fives, like the age that boys should be starting
yeah,
should be later
later.
than the age because they're like not developed.
And it's not every single boy. Like we
Of
have two
course, yeah.
nephews that live in Stockton. Antonio, born for school. I mean, and he's a boy. Zay, kicked out of preschool. Like Zay was not born for school. And yeah, kicked out of preschool. His teachers did that on purpose. He was like being bad. And such a sweetie, but yeah, and during COVID, no problem for Tonio. Because he was just like, I get things done, I can learn online. And Zay just tanked. And we had to hire a private, it was like he was 2 grade levels behind, coming out of, and we knew that the school wasn't going to catch him up. And he was going into middle school. And we're like, this is not, he's going to be, and he presents black. He's going to be like, black boy down the tubes. So we paid $10,000 for a year of private tutoring, which his mom could no way afford. And Joanne and I prioritized it. And it was a really good program. We got, and he's caught up, but it wasn't in regular school. Do you know what I mean? He had to get something different.
Well, because you said
But
that.
Tonio was fine the whole time.
Right.
So and they're both boys, and they're both in the same family, but most of the time it happens with boys. They like say, they go down they fall through the crack, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said that post-COVID, you thought that things would change, and they didn't.
They didn't change.
Yeah.
At all. Yeah.
Do boys mature later, like because of
In so
biology?
many ways. I mean, I'm sure you guys are going through that too with people. I mean, you said you've been going out with people older than you, which is really good. Except
Immediately,
then
yes.
down the line, if you partner with them, you're going to be taking care of them when they're like,
Yeah, this is what she said, and I was like, great.
Valid.
Great.
Wait,
I mean, right now, but down the line, no.
but is it biology or is it just the way they're socialized?
That's a good
Biology.
question. You think it's biology?
The maturing, yeah. It's like brain development. I think it's brain development.
I don't know. I think that's a good question.
But I
Or
mean,
is
it's always
it?
nature and nurture.
I
think
feel
it's a
like
little of both. But
I feel like
brain
it. Yeah, it could be the boys will be boys thing that just excuses their behavior.
that lets them do stuff. I think it's also
know.
development, though. I do think it's both.
Yeah,
Socialization.
nurture.
Yeah, socialization is in everything for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I also think, and I think like isn't there research? I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't read research, but like, aren't 25-year-old or 20-ish men sometimes like having these psychological meltdowns more often now? I just have a lot of friends who's like 20-year-old boys, like we're doing just fine, and then had like major like psychosis meltdown and had to, and once it was dealt with, they were fine.
Okay.
But
like mental health.
Yeah, like mental, like almost psychotic, like different person. Like couldn't handle
like midlife crisis.
Yeah,
perhaps?
but even more than that. So anyway, I don't know. And then they said, yeah, this has been happening, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on. And it's a brain thing. Something's up. And I don't think it happens to everybody, but happened
That's
more than
scary.
I knew it happening. When I was that age, I didn't know anyone who had a psychotic breakdown.
Well, I think the male loneliness epidemic is definitely real. Maybe it's
Yeah, which is what yeah.
But as my sister pointed out, there's a female loneliness crisis. I'm lonely.
There's a loneliness.
There's a loneliness epidemic, which the CDC literally said, and there's a generational loneliness. Gen Z is not doing well. So there's
which ones are Gen Z?
Us.
Oh, you guys are Gen Z.
Like we're on the cusp, but like us and younger.
What's the one younger? Like if you're 7 years old right now.
Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha.
Right?
Oh, that's a weird name.
Yeah, Gen Alpha. I think.
There's a name for it.
Gen Alpha.
Like you guys are Gen Zs. Gen X is before you, right?
Millennials are before us.
Where's Gen X before that?
Yeah. They're like, we're on the cusp of it, whatever millennials are. I think we're like 2 years younger than millennials or something like that. So just why I'm always being called a millennial.
So do you think it's like technology that has influenced
Yeah.
social lives and made people? I mean, I do think being on screen so much.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, social media and like the loss of third spaces, which was my whole thing. Like,
and that's third spaces are so important.
Places where people can just meet and hang out. And
have you read
community spaces? Yeah, that's like one of the foundations to my theory. And yeah, with the male loneliness crisis, that is getting younger and younger. Initially, it was like not college educated men in between like age 35 to 54, I think. And now it's just getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
Like it's now just all
everybody's
men. Yeah. All men. They say not all men, but all men are in this loneliness crisis, apparently. So
Like, if you're like a firefighter or something? Do you have camaraderie in like your group of? I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
anything about this.
Probably.
that and friends,
I just think of firefighters as men. They're not all men, but
unions,
what
police
about like
unions,
what about athletics
teams. Yeah,
teams?
yeah. No, they're talking about like loneliness without a group. I feel
Okay.
like part of that is so for adult men, it's really hard to make friends, especially in the South, because they don't want to be seen as gay. So this is a whole thing. Like they don't want to ask a man for his number, even if they see him a bunch at like a bar.
And they like him and they like talking to him.
Yeah, and they're
then
friends,
they'll be
but they're like, oh, I don't
can't
want
be
to ask him to hang out alone.
Yeah.
Like that's weird.
weird. Men can't do that.
Yeah, and then so that's one part. And then people are getting married less, and so there's not like that partner. Like they don't have a partner.
Mhm.
And so they're just kind of alone. Like
Yeah.
there's a female loneliness crisis, but we have friends.
Yeah, females are better with friends.
Yeah, a lot of the men that are in that like demographic don't have friends. And then there's this whole thing about like it's really hard to meet people at school now. It's hard or harder. It's hard to meet it's hard to meet people at work now because people are really worried about workplace harassment. And and things are remote. And my therapist was talking about how when she was young, and obviously there can be abuses of power in this and stuff, but she said a lot of people like dated their grad student or like their professor or like a grad student in a different department. Yeah, or someone at work.
Once you got into work.
Yeah, and she was just like, now that is very like
Not
frowned
okay.
upon and that sort of thing. And she was like, and some people like this is their only like dating pool. Like they're an odd, nerdy guy, but like in, the science department, the women that are in the science department like them, and this is all they got.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the male loneliness crisis, and obviously there are other factors too, like the decreases of unions, which used to provide a lot of camaraderie, to men. You think there's ways to, like, if you were going to change slash have your perfect classroom, like, do you think there are ways that you would restructure not only for gender but just in
Well, I think the going later, I think is a good idea. I also feel like I am not opposed to having parts of the day segregated by gender. Like not the whole day. I think you've got to interact with people from different genders and stuff, but I feel like for really learning and being curious and learning styles or whatever you want to say, it could be beneficial.
like the
Segregate
math
by gender. Like, like have kindergarten boys for half the day. This is your kindergarten boy class, and you guys are like rolling on the floor, whatever it is you need to do. I don't know, like this is how kindergarten boys learn best. And then the girls' class looks a little different. You know what I mean? And maybe there's some boys that want to be in the girls' class, and maybe there's some girls that fit better in the boys' class, and that's okay. But generally, there's different, like for a half day. And half day, you got to be together. Yeah, I kind of wish I'd gone.
But
I would have had
people
such a
will
better
riot in the
experience.
streets if you say that because gender is a whole thing now.
I know. Well, I mean, or you could choose maybe, but yet when you're 5, you can't really choose which one you want to be in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see that working. I wanted to do that in math, in teaching math, but oh God, so frowned upon. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it because even
then.
Yeah. That was like in 2000. And I was like, what if we just split boys? I'll teach the boys now and teach the girls. Oh no, can't do that. Can't do that.
Right.
So yeah, riot was not a good idea.
Is there anything you want to change about like educational experience, Amanda?
I feel like sometimes there's too much of a focus on productivity. And just like constantly doing things and like accomplishing things. And I feel like people need to be more comfortable like just sitting with themselves and figuring out like what they actually enjoy.
Like in class?
I mean, I think like school should focus more on like teaching people how to figure out what they're passionate about.
And exploring different things and how to think about different things. I think I think bingo on the productivity thing because I just think it's so overrated. And I think that people don't feel valuable unless they're productive. But what are you producing? Are you producing for the sake of producing? Or, and I just feel like in elementary school, it's less productivity oriented It's more like, I just feel like that's why I like elementary school. Middle school, it's turning things in. It's producing. Like, that's how you get your grade. You've got to like do that. It's not even what you learned from it. It's just produce it, produce it, produce it, produce it. And then from there, it's just producing, producing, producing,
Well, I think
producing
PhD actually kind of reverts back a little bit.
to learning.
Yeah.
Good.
Because you'll just have like one paper in the middle and one paper at the end. You're not like constantly producing
Producing.
something. Yeah. And
Then that's at a high level. Yeah.
yeah, and they even like the point of it is to progress from the midterm to the final. Like it's not about like what you turn it. It's like
How you change.
how did you change and how did you learn? But there is the whole other production side of it, which is publishing papers.
Yeah.
And that's how so you're like constantly trying to publish stuff on the side, but like the actual course I think is pretty learning oriented.
There has to be like a good balance between applying like your knowledge and your skills, but not just like forcing yourself to do things or forcing kids to do things just so they have homework and you feel like they're like, I don't know, like busy work. Like, why?
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Definitely. Definitely. This is reminding me of this seminal paper that I read when I was at Drew. So when I was a beginning teacher, and she was a sociologist, but I can't remember her name, but she was really famous at the time. And she studied all white kids, different classes in different schools, right? And so at the schools that served the highest class kids, it was really valued to question your teacher, to think for yourself. You're kind of cool if you didn't follow the rules and you questioned,
Like
questioned,
the
questioned.
wealthy.
Yeah, the highest class. And you were like training to be a leader. And then, down the the ladder
Hmm.
till you get an A for sitting still, raising your hand, following the rules, doing what the teacher says. That's what gets you an A.
Hmm.
So it's like, and I guess it's not about productivity, but this is not about productivity at all, but it's just a different approach to what learning is for different classes. I, I mean, social classes.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? And the
Yeah.
system and what it's perpetuating in different, at different social classes. And I think it would be really great if every single kid could explore what they're interested in and not be so worried about, producing, producing, producing as they're going through education. A friend of mine tried to start a school and she did. She started a school in DC just with that in mind. And I don't, whenever I'd ask Janine where it is, she's like, Lib, it's in a part of DC you would never go to. You're like,
It's in the
never
cut.
going to go there.
Yeah.
And it, it was really hard, and she was so focused on that purpose of providing that kind of a project-based education for kids who don't usually get it, and it was really hard to do. I think she lasted, like, 5 years.
Or to teach it.
It was hard to run it. It was hard to get the money for it. It was hard to train the teachers for it. It was hard to get the families to come. It was hard. Everything about it was hard. It doesn't mean it wasn't worthwhile, and she was really glad she did it, but she's stepping down now and somebody else is it's hard, but I think
I
that
mean,
would
it's
be
hard to
great.
do what
You
I
have to
do, even
imagine.
do what I do in
Yeah.
my classes in terms of
Yeah.
like, yeah, getting people to think like, because a lot of them are intro to public policy, pre-law. And so getting them to think like, is social policy, is law enforcement like the best way to create social change? If that's what you want to do, here are all the other ways that you can. You can be an activist, you can be an author, you can be whatever, whatever. And does one of these actually resonate more with your values and your skill set? But these are all things that you just have to consider so many things when you're trying to create a classroom where it's like, okay, I have to connect with the students. I have to
Yep.
actually teach the content so that they can
Yep.
do this stupid
Which
test.
yep.
I have to like help them understand the practical applications of it. Like, where in LA are you seeing this and how can you get involved if you want to get involved? I have to try to make them question themselves and develop as a person. And so all of a sudden you're making this super comprehensive. It's taking you every day, like not every day. It's taking you a ton of time
Yep.
curriculum. And then you see these other BS
Yeah.
teachers
That are
who
like
are doing
check
the
off
most
that are
basic
produced.
bullshit. Yeah,
Yeah.
the most absolute basic where it's like, today we're going to learn how to write a paragraph.
Right.
And it's like, as a 20-year-old at UCLA,
Right.
yeah, like this is wild. Meanwhile, I'm trying to get them to write a policy brief.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. Any last words?
No. Love you too. This was very fun.
Yeah, thanks
Fun-
for coming.
fun
Thanks
convo.
for being here.
No, I don't think I have any last words, but have great experiences until next time.
Next time, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, Melly.